There's a moment in every great match where the crowd stops breathing. Not because something spectacular happened, but because something quiet did. A shift. A stillness. The kind where you look at the scoreboard, then back at the court, and you realize the match you thought you were watching is no longer the match being played. That moment came on court Philippe Chatrier on a Tuesday afternoon in Paris, and if you blinked, you almost missed it. Novak Djokovic, 2 days past his 39th birthday, was supposed to be the story. 82 Grand Slam main draw appearances. Standing alone in the record books, finally ahead of Roger Federer, a number that represents not just talent, not just ambition, but an almost incomprehensible willingness to suffer. That was the headline coming in. That was the celebration everyone expected. What nobody expected was Giovanni Maypi Pericard. 6 feet 8 inches of raw French power, serving bombs at 226 km per hour on his home clay, in front of a crowd that was absolutely desperate to see a giant fall. And for the first set and a half, it genuinely looked like they might get exactly what they came for. The opening set belonged to Pericard in a way that felt almost unfair to watch. The points were short, violent, and completely one-sided. You'd watch Djokovic set his feet, read the toss, and then the ball would already be past him. Ace. The crowd would erupt. Pericard would stroll to the other side of the court, barely sweating, barely even celebrating, like a man who knew he had more where that came from. On clay, a surface built for long grinding rallies and tactical chess, the big Frenchman was somehow making the game feel like it was played on fast indoor carpet. And that created a very specific kind of psychological problem for Djokovic. When you know you can't touch the other guy's serve, every game on your own racket starts to feel like a tightrope. There's no margin. One bad toss, one forehand that clips the tape, and the set is gone. The pressure doesn't come from your opponent. It comes from inside your own head, quietly building, tightening, until finally at 5 games all in the first set, Djokovic steps up to serve, misses the first ball, tries to push the second one deep, and sends it long. Double fault. Break of serve. The crowd erupts. The set slips away 7-5. And for the first time in 16 years, Novak Djokovic drops an opening round set at Roland Garros. He walks to his chair, eyes down on the red brick dust, and he looks exactly like what he is in that moment. A 39-year-old man who just dropped the first set of a match he needed to win cleanly. The cameras zoomed in, the way they always do when the great ones look vulnerable, searching his face for panic, for doubt, for some crack in the foundation. And here's the thing about watching Djokovic up close in those moments. There's no performance. He doesn't throw his racket. He doesn't stare down his box. He just sits. He breathes. He processes. Because what was happening on that court wasn't a crisis of tennis. It was a puzzle. And Djokovic's entire career has been built on solving puzzles under pressure. The second set started the same way the first one ended. Pericard was rolling, the aces were piling up, 16 of them over the course of the afternoon, and the court felt like it was shrinking with every game. The French crowd was getting louder, feeding energy into the big man with every free point, and you could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on Chatrier like humidity. But somewhere in the middle of that second set, something changed. Not dramatically. Not in a way that made the crowd gasp. Just quietly, the way the tide changes before anyone on the beach notices the water moving differently. Djokovic started stepping in on the return. Now if you've never played tennis, that detail might sound small. It isn't. When a serve is coming at you at 140 miles per hour, every instinct in your body tells you to move back, to give yourself space, to buy an extra fraction of a second to read the ball. Stepping in does the exact opposite. It cuts your reaction window down to almost nothing. It demands a level of hand-eye coordination that is genuinely hard to put into words. But by stepping in and taking the ball early, Djokovic was doing something Pericard had no answer for. He was killing the angles. Those massive serves that were pulling Djokovic into the stands, the ones that were jamming him into his ribs before he could get his racket back, suddenly they were being absorbed and redirected. Not hit hard. Not returned with pace. Just blocked back, deep down the middle of the court, over and over again. And that, right there, is where the match turned. Because here's what nobody tells you about being 6'8" on a clay court. The same height that gives you those terrifying angles off the serve becomes a liability the moment you have to slide and dig and bend your knees to retrieve a low ball on an unstable surface. Hard courts let you plant. Clay shifts beneath you. A big frame on clay burns through energy at a rate that feels genuinely cruel, and Djokovic knew this. He wasn't trying to outplay Pericard. He was trying to make him work. Every blocked return that came back deep forced the Frenchman to reset. Every reset cost him a step. Every extra step cost him energy he wasn't getting back. The rallies started stretching. 3 shots became 5. 5 became 8. The free points dried up. You could see Pericard starting to press on his serve, trying to be just a little more precise, just a little closer to the line, to avoid the rally altogether. And when a server starts pressing, the first serve percentage drops, and when the first serve percentage drops, everything gets harder. The second set came down to game 12. Pericard was serving at 5-6, needing to hold to force a tiebreak. And Djokovic, sensing the door, decided to walk through it. The game was brutal. A back-and-forth grind where the Frenchman was throwing everything he had, swinging freely, trying to end points early, and Djokovic was just there, a wall, redirecting pace, pushing the ball into corners, never letting the court open up. Then came the point. 17 shots. Not a single one of them particularly beautiful in the way highlight reel tennis usually is. Just heavy, relentless, exhausting baseline tennis. Djokovic pinning Pericard deep on the backhand, forcing high defensive replies, and then without warning, injecting a sharp line drive to the other side. Pericard's massive frame slid awkwardly across the red dirt, reaching, stretching, barely getting the racket on the ball. Djokovic didn't go for a winner off the reply. He just sent it back deep to the other corner. Make him run. Make him stop. Make him change direction. On the 17th shot, Pericard went for a forehand and put it straight into the bottom of the net. The crowd went silent. Djokovic stood at the baseline, chest barely moving, and gave a slow nod toward his box. No fist pump. No roar. Just that nod. Like a man who had just confirmed something he already knew. The set went to Djokovic 7-5. The match was level. But the scoreboard was almost irrelevant at that point because something had broken that couldn't be repaired with rest or tactics or willpower. Pericard walked to his chair bent over his racket, and anyone who's played sport at any serious level knows that posture. That's not tiredness. That's realization. The realization that you've been playing on borrowed time, that the man on the other side of the net has been quietly, patiently, methodically setting a trap and you've been walking deeper into it with every single rally. The third set wasn't a tennis match anymore. It was an autopsy. Djokovic had identified something the analysts confirmed afterward, a metric called rally tolerance, which measures how well a player maintains their tactical discipline as the point gets longer. For Pericard, for shots was the ceiling. Get to the fifth ball and his decision-making started to fracture. He'd go for a low percentage flat winner off a high bouncing ball, anything to avoid being pulled side to side on dead legs. Djokovic knew this, and he played every single point accordingly. No line hunting. No spectacular winners. Just depth. Relentless, suffocating depth, pinning the big man behind the baseline and making him generate pace he no longer had in his legs. And then the cramps started. There's a particular kind of helplessness that comes with cramping in the middle of a point. Your mind knows exactly where you need to be, what shot you need to hit, and your body simply refuses the request. Pericard was trapped inside his own frame, and Djokovic showed absolutely no mercy. He didn't slow down between points to give the kid a moment to breathe. At 39 years old, you don't leave doors open. You close them. The third set was over in what felt like minutes. 6-1. Clinical. Cold. Completely inevitable. By the fourth set the stadium had changed. The raucous Parisian crowd that had come ready to celebrate an historic home upset had gone quiet in that particular way crowds go quiet when they realize the outcome they wanted is no longer available. Djokovic broke early, protected his serve, and closed it out 6-4. Match over in just under 3 hours. At the net, the contrast between the two players was almost uncomfortable to look at. Pericard was completely hollowed out. Djokovic, 2 days past 39, looked like he'd just finished a light warm-up session. Like he was ready to go again. In the press conference afterward, something interesting happened. Pericard was honest. Not the polite loss with grace kind of honest. Actually honest. He said when the ball crossed the net for the 4th time, Djokovic put him somewhere else entirely. That his endurance didn't just outlast the fitness, it broke it. That by the end he was being dragged into a world he simply wasn't equipped to survive in. And Djokovic, for his part, was equally open. He admitted the serve was unlike almost anything he'd faced in his career. He talked about his age without embarrassment, acknowledging that the biggest challenge now isn't winning points or reading opponents. It's making sure his body can physically survive a 5-set match deep in a major. And then he said something quietly that should terrify everyone left in that draw. He said the fire was still there. Not performing that the fire was still there. Actually meaning it, in the way you can only mean something after you've spent 3 hours surviving a 22-year-old with a cannon serve in front of a hostile crowd on your 39th birthday week. Think about what this match actually was on paper. A home crowd favorite playing loose and free with nothing to lose. A monstrous physical weapon that the greatest returner alive said was maybe the most difficult serve he'd ever faced. Heavy clay conditions. A nearly 4-decade-old body with a recovery clock that doesn't run the way it used to. This was supposed to be a trap. It had every ingredient to be the match people pointed to for the next decade when they talked about the moment Djokovic's run finally ended. Instead, it became a statement. Alex Ila and the rest of the women's draw are watching a different tournament. But the men in that locker room, the ones who are mapping out potential quarter-final and semi-final paths, every single one of them just watched Djokovic take the worst possible first-round scenario and turn it into a clinic. Valentin Royer is next. He'll walk onto that court knowing that somewhere in the draw, a 39-year-old is moving smoother than men a decade younger, reading the game at a level that defies everything we think we know about athletic aging, and waiting. Not impatiently. Not desperately. Just waiting, the way a chess player waits after a move that the opponent hasn't understood yet. Because that's the truth about Novak Djokovic in Paris in 2026. You can be younger. You can serve bigger. You can win a set. But if you follow him into the deep water, if you let the match stretch and the legs start to burn and the rallies push past that 4th shot, you are no longer playing tennis on your terms. You are playing his game. And in his game, on his clay, at his tournament, almost nobody has ever come out the other side.